Hello, everyone, and welcome to Grandstand Sports Data, your go to channel for sports, statistics, and unbiased handicapping. In today's video, we're going to give you our top 2024 quarterback draft prospects. We're going to give you the analysis for each of the quarterbacks, what our projections are, and also compare some of their traits to some of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. Okay, so coming in at number 6 is going to be Bo Nix, and we're going to use Bo just to describe what you will be seeing going through the video. What we did is we looked at 10 scouts websites for the ones that do make their stuff public. We took the 10 scouting reports for each of the quarterbacks, and what we did is we basically went through their strengths and their weaknesses, and we went through the traits that we look for in a quarterback. You can see that in past videos that we have made. I'll leave a link for identifying a franchise quarterback video that we made that shows all the traits that we look for. Next, you're going to see the asterisk next to the trait, and that means that in that video, when we identified a franchise quarterback, the asterisk next to the trait means that it's good for strengths. So it's great at identifying that franchise quarterback. Velocity would be a good strength. Football IQ would be a good strength. Now you're going to see asterisks on the other side for weaknesses. This means that it's a good trait to be weak in going into the NFL. You could still be a franchise quarterback even with those weaknesses. So first we're going to move on to Bo and his velocity. His velocity trait, he's outstanding in terms of his arm strength and his mobility. Also, you're going to see the color codes. You're going to see this is in yellow. This means that it showed up, this specific trait showed up in about 7 out of the 10 scouting reports. So basically the trait, if you see it in red, it means it showed up in maybe 10. If you see it in orange, it showed up in maybe about 8 of the scouting reports. So it's based on our color scheme that we do for almost all our videos. But as you can see, Bo Nix, great velocity, great mobility. He has good football IQ. And when we say physical, we don't just mean size, we also mean toughness as well. So anything physical. And also some of the scouting reports, even though we may disagree with this, he has been labeled a winner. On the weaknesses end, we've seen a lot of him lacking the ability to read a defense either pre or post snap. His decision making seems to be lacking. Also, his mechanics and his pocket presence. That was just covering Bo in terms of the traits. Now we're looking at the technical analysis. And with the technical analysis, all we did was we took all his college football numbers and we put them in an algorithm that we built that took college numbers and translated them to NFL football success. And we did this with all the active quarterbacks, and I want to say the last 5 years with their college stats and with their pro stats. So with Bo Nix's college stats, these are the projected stats he would have for the regular season. His completion percentage would be 62.4. And you'll see that to be 33rd in the NFL in this past season. So he would have ranked 33rd in the NFL if he threw 62.4 completion. And that was his projection. As you look down the line, you can see touchdown percentage, interception percentage, and all the ranks that go along with them. Next, we also did the same thing for playoff success. And some of these numbers might be real low. Like you're going to say, how would a quarterback throw for 37.3 completion percentage in the playoffs? Well, that probably means that he didn't make the playoffs. That his win percentage of 42 or 43% in the regular season does not translate well to the playoffs, and that he probably didn't even make it. Next, we did awards. So we took those same stats, we translated into awards. You'll see individual awards. This would be either Offensive Player of the Year, MVP. Next would be Pro Bowls. He's projected to win, or excuse me, not win, but be selected to one Pro Bowl. Next would be All Pros, and then next would be Super Bowl wins, and that means starting. So a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo that does have 2 Super Bowl wins, he didn't actually start, so he would have a 0. Next, we're gonna move to the technical, professional, comparison. So with these numbers and with all of this data, Who does he compare to? Well, he compares to Mac Jones. One Pro Bowl, zero other accolades, one playoff appearance, and it was a loss. So you're going to see this as you go on as well. Also going to see all the traits that we use. Remember, we just explained that in our video, Finding a Franchise Quarterback. We're going to show you all the values. And this is basically on a scale of like -5 to 5, -5 being the worst, 5 being the best. And this is taking those scouting reports, analyzing them, seeing how much this trait ended up in those scouting reports. As you can see, velocity, like we spoke on, mobility, you can see the grade next to it as well, and then his total grade at the bottom. And then his comp will be based on these traits in this fundamental analysis. Who does he compare to? And that'll be Baker Mayfield. So what we're seeing mostly in all the scouting reports, you're going to see also where they're expected to be drafted. In majority of the scouting reports, they're saying late first, early second for Bo Nix. For his career expectation, they're expecting for him to be a mid-level starter. And then us, this is just us at Grandstand Sports Data, data, taking our technical analysis, taking our fundamental analysis, also using our eyeballs, and just shooting who we think he could end up with, being compared to. And we think a good comparison for Bo Nix would be Gardner Minshew. So now going on to number 5, and as you can see, J.J. McCarthy would be the number 5 best quarterback. At least we would think so here at Grandstand Sports Data. Also, this rank is going to be based on the fundamental analysis that you'll see at the bottom, and we'll show you going forward. Strengths, you're going to see he's a winner. It was being hit on in every single scouting report that he is a winner. He's also a leader, and that is an indicator of a good franchise quarterback, but he only holds one of those traits. Next, he has good pocket presence. And next is he looks a little professional ready, almost like an Alex Smith is what I would compare him to in terms of, if you like the type of a game manager. He's also a little bit more mobile than people give him credit for. Weaknesses, he has a hard time reading defenses. He also has a hard time with decision making and also the physical part of his game. I would say he is tough, but he's a little bit small. Next, we'll move on to his technical analysis. If he wound up with these stats right here, he would have been the 16th best quarterback in the NFL. So it's about mid-level. I would equate that. So even though playoff success lack of playoff success, he would have a 22% win percentage. I do think that this number should be a little bit bigger because he should be showing up for the playoffs. When you're 16th in the NFL, you are going to be able to make the playoffs. You'll see a 2.8 touchdown percentage next to a 2.1 interception rate, especially in the playoffs. That's not too bad, but the passer rating of 58, he's going to have some clunkers, is what these numbers are saying. Some of the awards, an individual award, that's either an Offensive Player of the Year or even an MVP. I don't expect him to win an MVP, but it's selected to 3 Pro Bowls, is what the stats are saying. That is a good technical pro comp to Jared Goff for an active quarterback. Next, we're going to move on to the fundamental analysis. And like we said earlier, you're going to see a point system. And it's based on this total point, how we got this ranking up here. So as we go on, if that's what was this person ranked in front of this person? It's based on all these traits, the scouting reports, and the tallies that we did with them, and then the final number. With this, basically, this scouting report, or with all the scouting reports and these traits, the fundamental analysis had a pro comp of Kirk Cousins. So you can expect maybe a mid level starter, about where he was 15th, 16th, where he was ranked. And that he's projected to go in the late first round of this year's draft. Our pro comp, who we thought he would be very comparable to, would be Derek Carr. Maybe 1 or 2 playoff appearances, set a few Pro Bowls also. We think that that's along the lines of Derek Carr. Also, the style of player. I don't want to say that they're the same. I think J.J. McCarthy's more of that Alex Smith style game manager, stay in the pocket, but at times can be mobile and move out of the pocket. So coming in at number 4 is going to be Michael Penix Jr. And this is a guy that has great velocity. He can whip that puppy anywhere on the field. He has great pocket presence, and his football IQ is really good as well. So having those two traits, and then also having a third one with his leadership, this is maybe lining up to be a good franchise quarterback. He also reads defenses very well, has great vision, and he's been a winner. He only lost the national title game this past season, but labeling him a winner is mostly from Indiana and making that school, basically turning them into a winner while he was there until he transferred. Some weaknesses, a lot of scouts don't know if he's actually pro ready yet. His mechanics are also kind of poor. Physical, this is not necessarily the size and the build, it's more of the injuries and the toughness. Shoulder surgery, torn ACLs, he has a problem with the physicality. Also his accuracy, it was being known as a weakness on a few of the scouting reports, but it was never being brought up as a strength. So that's why it showed up as a weakness. So there is sometimes he likes to float the ball, into cut, or I think that he likes to float the ball and got away with it in college, but as he makes that next step to the pros, where guys are running, sub 540s, and almost everybody is, he's not going to have that. He's just not going to have that gap. That space will not be there for him. So that's for Michael Penix, and based on the trait. On to Michael Penix for the stats. The stats actually translated very well, as you can see. They actually project him to have a 92.2 rating. That would be good for 16th in the NFL this past year. Also having a 4.4 touchdown percentage, that's also middle of the pack as well. When you accumulate all these stats, it brings you to a 57.1 win percentage, which would have been top 10 in the NFL this past season. So he's translating in terms of his statistics and what he's been doing back from Indiana all the way to Washington. So remember, all this factors in. Playoffs now. He would be almost close to, with a 70.5 he's going to have some clunkers. Completion percentage is obviously not going to be 49.5. It's obviously going to be a little bit better. Things I would look at though, in terms of, the accolades, one Super Bowl win. So he may win a Super Bowl. Maybe what this playoff is telling you, these playoff numbers are telling you, is that maybe he has a good beginning to his career, gets off, maybe lands into the right situation, wins a Super Bowl, gets an All Pro. So actually, is 1 year where he is the best quarterback in the NFL. This means he has to fall into the right situation, because I don't believe that the skill set is there for that. 4 Pro Bowls, so it's very comparable to Lamar Jackson. Even though Lamar has not won a Super Bowl, his numbers are very comparable to a Lamar Jackson. Moving on to the fundamental analysis, like we always touched on in the traits, this gave him an 18 for a total score. We'd say that the fundamental pro comp, when you looked at all of these in the past and other scouting reports, it lined up to look like Jordan Love. What his career expectation is, all the scouting reports are kind of saying that he's a mid-level starter, so you can catch him about where they thought JJ McCarthy, in that 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 range, in terms of talent and output. Expected to be drafted in the mid-first round of this year's draft. And us at Grandstand Sports Data, we thought he was a good comp to Matt Stafford. Maybe gets on the right team, wins a Super Bowl, is in the right place, has that offensive scheme that really helps him. That could actually turn him into a Matt Stafford, or that's the pathway that we looked at when comparing him to some of the active quarterbacks. Coming in at number 3 is Drake May, and as you can see, he's flooded with strengths. His velocity, he's able to throw the ball anywhere on the field, and that is a trait that lines up for him to be a franchise quarterback. Also, physical. He's very tall, he's very big, and he's young as well. So Mobility, he's able to move out of the pocket. He's also great in the pocket with his pocket presence. He's very accurate. That's another trait as well that you're looking at when you want a franchise quarterback. His vision is very good, excuse me, and his football IQ. And his football IQ, that's another one. It's another trait that you have to look at when developing a franchise quarterback. He's also a leader, and I think this showed up a little bit, didn't show up much. It never showed up as a weakness, only as a strength. Some people say, well, what is that? How would it come up as a weakness? Some guys, they're not leaders, so they will tell you if they are not. Also, I'm gonna say slightly pro ready. A few scouts touched on it, weren't too descriptive about it, but said he's a very volatile. He's very hit or miss, and that's based on some of these weaknesses. The weaknesses, he's not able to read a defense very well. That's pre and post snap. His mechanics are not the best, but remember, mechanics you can get away with as a weak trait going into the NFL, and also trying to become a franchise quarterback, and also decision making. Some of these things, can be alleviated as you get into the NFL. They were touched on quite a bit, as you can see them being in gold or in yellow. So they were touched on a lot, maybe in about 5 out of the 10 in terms of a weakness. So something you have to look out for in him. Now moving on to some of the technical analysis. The technical analysis, some of these stats did travel in terms of how well he played in North Carolina and making it to the NFL. Bad throw percentage is kind of something to look out for. It said accuracy would have been a good trait, but it looks like it would have been good enough for 37th in the NFL if it projected out. He would have finished about 19th, so that's about middle of the road, a little bit lower than guys like J.J. McCarthy and Michael Penix. Not much playoff success. It looks like in the awards he would win one award, maybe I don't know, Rookie of the Year or whatever it may be, and then one Pro Bowl. And this is a very close comparison to Trevor Lawrence. That's what we think. Or not that's what we think, but these numbers translated to Trevor Lawrence. And with the fundamental analysis, we already went over it. These finished with a 19 total score, making him third. This is good enough for a B. Um, when you look at this as a whole, this fundamental analysis, it was very comparable to a Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert had a very much of the same scouting report. When you look at the career expectation, he's very volatile. He could be a bust or he could be an all pro. It's just you really don't know. I think that when you really don't know and someone's very volatile, you have to look at the fit. He has to get drafted to a good team. He can't get drafted to the Commanders, an organization that's kind of, or even the Bears. I think that the Bears, they've never had success with the quarterback. I think their best quarterback in their franchise's history is Jay Cutler, and that's sad. So it's like a guy needs to be drafted into the right fit as well, and I don't think a lot of that gets publicized enough. Is just all of us do this scouting and all, and then a guy will get drafted to an organization that sucks, and it turns him into suck. So it's just, where can you expect Drake to be drafted? You can expect him to be a top 3 pick. You're hearing Patriots a lot at that number 3 spot. You're also hearing if Jaden Daniels gets skipped over, they will jump to Drake May at 2. We thought a very good comparison would be a Kirk Cousins for his, so not much playoff success, but regular season success. They're kind of not stylistically the same neither, but just in terms of their stats and their production, we felt like it was Kirk Cousins was a good fit. And number 2 is Caleb Williams, and I know this might be a surprise to some people, but remember, it's not really us. It was more the fundamental analysis and the number it spit out at the end. So, just looking at his strengths, I've never seen more strengths in terms of, some people raving about his velocity, his accuracy, his vision, and his mobility. They think that he's very close to Patrick Mahomes, that he's being compared to the smaller Mahomes on a lot of these scouting reports. Just looking at the asterisk, which means that specific trait translates into a franchise quarterback, velocity and accuracy, obviously being those two, and then also football IQ. He has great football IQ. good pocket presence. He was also labeled a winner on some of these scouting reports. I don't know if I can necessarily agree. I thought this was like uh, a good test year for him to see if he could win something, and he didn't. So, but that's just me. But on the scouting reports, they do label him as a winner. Not on all of them, but on some of them. Some of his weaknesses, though, decision making. Decision making almost pops up on every single scouting report as one of his strongest weaknesses. That's not good going into the NFL, in my eyes. But in terms of our franchise quarterback video, it was actually a trait that you can be weak in. Also, mechanics. You can get away with being weak with mechanics because you can work on it in the NFL. That does pop up on his scouting reports. Next would be physical. And what I mean by physical is not his toughness, it's his body. He's small. And when I say small, he's short and compared to other quarterbacks. And they everywhere that you see on scouting reports, they either compare him to Kyler Murray, who is short, or they say smaller Mahomes. Next would be leadership. This is more of in between the ears as well. Um, I think we've all seen some of the pushback that some people give in terms of the crying, the nail polish, and all that. I really don't care about that because it's me. I don't care about that crap. But you need to understand that for him to be successful like Mahomes, he needs to command an NFL locker room, not just an offense, not just a specialist. He needs to command a whole room, and those people in that room need to buy into that type of stuff. So it's not me he has to win over. He has to win over them, and he may have some issues with that. Went on to some of his technical analysis and some of his college stats and how they translated. You can see some of the better ones with touchdown percentage. He would have finished 18th in the NFL when it was translated from college to the pros. Also on target, his accuracy is pretty good. Would have been 21st in the NFL, but his win percentage would have taken a hit. He would have been 39, uh, basically 39 win percentage rate, which would have left him 27th in the NFL. It's looking like he's not going to have hot playoff success just based on the stats. Remember, this is just based on the stats being translated over. So, that's not using your eyeballs. It's just numbers spitting out an algorithm. So, just want you to be aware of that. They do think he'll win one award. Maybe this is an MVP. Maybe it's an Offensive Player of the Year, whatever it is. But two Pro Bowls, sorry, zero All Pros, and zero Super Bowls. This is very comparable to Jalen Hurts. We said this number is a 20, his total number for his fundamental score. That's basically what it's based off of for the rank. So you're going to see the next guy will obviously have higher than a 20. Uh, with this scouting report and with this fundamental basically grade, it was very comparable to Kyler Murray, just like we said. His career expectation, you can expect him to be an All Pro, even though the technical analysis didn't show that. He is expected to be an All Pro. He's expected to go 1-1 in the draft. Us at Grandstand Sports Data, we compared him to Deshaun Watson. He's got all the tools, he's got all the talent, he's got all the physical ability. It's just we think there's something between the ears. There's something between the ears with him. And then the second thing is winning the NFL locker room over. Or just getting that buy-in. Guys like Mahomes, Brady, Mannings, both of the Mannings, they commanded a locker room. I don't know if he can do that. If he can't do that, he could always be good, but he'll never be great. He'll never be Mahomes. He'll never be Brady. Uh, that's just my opinion. Coming in at number one is Jaden Daniels. And Jaden Daniels, you can see from his strengths. And I want to say maybe the reason why he came in at number one is because of the weaknesses. He barely has any weaknesses, and he's either great but not fantastic at a lot of things. You can see his mobility. That's his best trait. That's also could get you it could also get you into some trouble if being physical is your weak trait as well. So those two in a combination could kind of scare you. Some of his strengths though, he's very accurate, he's got great vision, great pocket presence, and great football IQ. The accuracy and the football IQ translate to that franchise quarterback. Also, he has good decision making. These are all necessary for making it to the next level. Also, his leadership abilities as well. That was brought up a number of times in these scouting reports with his good mechanics. So I want to say that maybe the reason why he jumped ahead of Williams in terms of, our analysis is based he was always grading well in most of the traits. You can see from the weaknesses, velocity, doesn't throw the ball as hard as the other guys, but when I say other guys, I mean the other guys in the draft. And he's also very slender. He's tall, or he's big enough, but in terms of his weight, you can see he's a very slim guy and could get hurt at the next level. Moving on to the technical analysis, taking the statistics from college, translating them to success, you can see not well. 38th in the NFL in terms of his completion percentage, he would have projected to be. Also, his interception rate would have been high. He would have been 31st in the NFL with a 34.9 win percentage, which isn't good. Wouldn't have translated to playoff success. 1.2% touchdown to 4.1% interception ratio, which would be terrible, and that's in the playoffs. And it wouldn't be even that better if it was the regular season. So something about the algorithm that does not like his college stats and them translating to the NFL. You could see he would win one award. He'd make it to 2 Pro Bowls, and he'd actually win a Super Bowl in there. So I'm thinking maybe he has maybe like one fantastic year, and then the rest of them kind of craps the bed. In terms of that's what the stats we're looking at. These stats are very comparable, except if you take away the Super Bowl and the Pro Bowl. I think if you take away all the awards, just these numbers itself, it's comparable to Justin Fields. Just like we said when we were talking about the fundamental analysis in the final number being 23, higher than 20 in Caleb Williams and being number 1, is that he grades very good in almost every statistic here, or every trait here. Sorry, he only has an F in one, which would be the physicality. The other one being a -1 for velocity, that being a D, but everything else, he's a well-rounded player. As you could see from the fundamental pro comp, that would be very comparable to Lamar Jackson. So Lamar Jackson's probably in the throwing categories where he probably lacks a little bit. Expectations, most of the scouting reports were saying year 1 starter. That's basically what they were labeling as. He looks like he's going to be a top 3 pick. I would have said top 2, but some people are going switching him and May in terms of the 2 and 3. We think a good comp would be a Jalen Hurts. Maybe makes it to a Super Bowl, doesn't necessarily win a Super Bowl, but has all the ingredients to be a good playoff quarterback, a good franchise quarterback, and maybe even get over that hump that Jalen Hurts would not be able to. So on this slide, you're going to see our historical analysis. We've been analyzing draft reports for quarterbacks back since Trevor Lawrence was drafted. So that would be the first year. Trevor Lawrence, you'll see, C.J. Stroud from last year, Bryce Young from last year. All the way got down to Zach Wilson, who was the year that Trevor Lawrence came out. But this is basically, if you want to pause the video, this is just that fundamental score that we had. We had Caleb at 20, Jaden at 23. Last year we had Bryce Young at 28, and also C.J. Stroud at 28. Our highest quarterback we've ever scouted has been Trevor Lawrence. Next, you'll also find the strengths next to them. And you're going to see green and red. You're going to say, what is this? This is based on our franchise quarterback video. So remember, we said that there are traits that some quarterbacks have that you want to be strengths, and there's some that you want to be weaknesses, and those translate into a franchise quarterback. And as you can see, Trevor Lawrence, he basically holds 4 of the traits that you're supposed to have out of the 6. You can see some guys, Jaden Daniels, he's actually got all reds, so his don't translate. And I'm thinking that's what I was touching on earlier, that mobility mixed with that physicality. So the mobility being a strength mixed with the physicality, usually you get hurt. You saw the same thing from Bryce Young. He was absolutely crap last year. And some of these traits will tell you, they will show you already. You could see CJ Stroud, he had 4 out of the 6 traits in the green. Probably would have pushed us, CJ Stroud over Bryce Young, even though they were tied in the fundamental analysis. But I don't want to get too much into this. You can pause the video, you can look at it, even go back to and pause the video and look at whatever you need for your information. So like always, we'd like to thank you guys for watching. If you wouldn't mind, please hitting that sub button. That way you can be the first to get our content before anybody else, and it will show up on your notifications. Also hit the like button if you like the work that we do. We would be greatly appreciated if you, it's basically a thank you to us. And finally, if you wouldn't mind sharing and commenting down below. And thank you guys, and we'll see you in the next one.